Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our last day of our Winter Intercession Career Development Academy. Today we have TED Talks, and we today have Luana Arajuo, who will be speaking on her experiences and some of the things that changed her career. So Luana?
Yeah, so hi, Olivia, Paul. Thank you for having me. Thank you all for being here today. I want to share with you a personal professional experience that I think it's going to be at least very entertaining to all of you, but I hope it really gives you an idea of what life can be after the experience that you're having right now. So my name is Luana Araújo. I am Brazilian. I am an infectious disease physician from Brazil, as I said. I am an MPH alum, class of 2020. And so I have been in your shoes a while ago, but most importantly, I was appointed the National Secretary for COVID-19 response in Brazil, and I was dismissed 10 days later. So what I want you to understand is the journey that took me from my regular ID physician practice to public health, to Johns Hopkins, and then to what seemed to be the peak of my career, and how that fell apart 10 days later, but actually was the most important thing that happened to me. So I assure to all of you that my time at Hopkins seemed to be a decade ago or something. I'm pretty sure that you all kind of feel like this because of the pandemic, but I was fortunate enough to be the first summer scholar from my country. And that journey of coming from a country that has so many difficulties, so many disparities, and fighting for public health and all of that happened is exactly what I want to tell you. And most of all, how my core values drove me all the way through my private practice to public health, to Johns Hopkins, to national management of public health in my country, and everything else that happened later, and how that actually changed my life forever. So I think that I know how most of you may feel. Your commitment, the sacrifices that we make to being in a program at Hopkins, for example, the high standards, and most of all, the huge expectations that we have. So what is life is going to be after JHS PhD? This is something that I questioned myself a lot, especially being the first summer scholar of my country. I felt like I had, by then, I felt that I had the entire world on my shoulders, but I quite didn't know exactly what that was. And I felt that later. So I was a very successful ID physician in my country. I don't know if you know Brazil, and if you don't know, you should. Shame on you. The country is huge. We have a population over 210 million people. And among the countries with over 200 million people in the world, we are the largest free at point of care health system in the world. It's health is a right that is set in stone in our constitution, and it's free of charge from primary to tertiary care. So as an ID specialist, I had a pretty good experience with both private and public care. I knew and I know my country's health systems by heart. I know its values, I know its virtues, its issues. And that was the most important thing that I did for myself, even without knowing that I was going to pursue a career in public health by then. I used, as I said, to work with both private and public sectors in primary and tertiary care. I've worked through epidemics such as H1N1, dengue fever, Zika. We are a tropical country, so we do have a lot of seasonal epidemics. We have endemics, of course, but I loved it. That's the point. I loved to work as an ID physician. I loved to take care of my patients, but something was missing for me. And as I was able to help patients after patients, I could understand more and more that most of them shouldn't be there. So they could have been taken care of in a much earlier stage of their diseases. And that was due mainly was not due exclusively to the failures of the health system, but most and primarily to the social determinants of health. And that was extremely frustrating to me. So as the first opportunity presented itself to me, I had no doubt at all. And that is, I think, that probably the first time that I felt those core values that I'm going to explain to you exactly what are they. But it was the first time that I can recall feeling them so mature and screaming so out loud. Courage, determination, science driven, hard work, willpower, and the drive to serve. All of that actually took me from a regular person to a physician and to the choice for infectious disease field. But they all, I think that they were getting more and more mature. And by that time, when this opportunity presented to me, I felt them screaming, as I told you. And that led me to leave my previous career path and to accept the challenge to help a small city inland Brazil, a city with 35,000 inhabitants named Nova Mutum, to help them deal with an outbreak of syphilis in pregnant women. And I went there, and I don't live there. I live at quite distance. I need to take a 2-hour flight and another 3 hours by car to get to the city. And I helped them deal with that, and we succeeded. And that was incredible. That motivated me to expand the scope of the work to all of the other IDs, all of the other infectious diseases, I'm sorry, we could approach through primary healthcare, and also to the city's preparedness and response to those seasonal infectious disease threats that we had. I developed a parallel curriculum to teach people about, and by people, I mean everybody that works in the health system, but also the community, to understand from basic science through epidemiology and patient care for all of those major ID threats. Of course, that each person or each level or each category in a different depth of knowledge, but we all learned together how to deal with those public health issues as a community, and we succeeded again. I did that for 2 entire years, and that was a lot. I had to spend half of the time outside my home, and then half of the time at home preparing, understanding data, preparing classes, and changing processes and a lot of different specific details for the local health system. But as I told you, we succeeded. So I decided to scale that project. Listen, I'm still not talking about the 10 days that changed my life, but you need to understand how I got there. That's why I'm telling you all of these crazy facts. But so I decided to scale it, and I traveled throughout Brazil to find a partner to do that. And I failed. Actually, I thought by then that I failed, but I didn't. Actually, the system failed me. But I felt by then that that was a huge setback, my first big failure as a professional. And that setback almost took me back to my infectious disease physician life. I need to remember you that I was just a physician, I didn't have a public health proper training. I was there with my knowledge, my values, and my will, and my, common sense to do things differently and to organize things in a way that could be that could turn into a better place for everybody else. So, but beyond that, I had never directly dealt with politicians and had absolutely no one to teach me how to do that. And this is important because I don't know your background, but probably you don't have that kind of experience. And suddenly you may need that, as happened to me. And I learned that this is something that you do not learn anywhere, not even at Hopkins. You may understand how the policies are made or what are the factors that shape situations that will affect policy making, or how to deal with data and how to work with that and how to interpret data and everything else. But to transform that into something that will actually change people's lives, that requires different experience. And I didn't have that. So that was the beginning of that experience. So I decided those values actually led me not to give up. So I decided to look for international partners. So I wrote to different US universities, and they all answered me. They all offered me help. They all offered me partnerships. And then I came back to the health secretary of the city that I was working with, super excited, and told her, you know what, this is happening, so we will be able to do this and that. And she looked me in the eyes and said, I don't want that. You want that. I don't want that. And you are becoming more popular than I am. So the project is over. I know that this is not something absolutely Brazilian or expected from a country like mine. This is how people work. So you will probably face that at some point of your life, or not, I hope so. But if you're going to work with this kind of thing, you probably will experience something like this. And I felt that. I truly felt that. But then I had the chance to be at Hopkins and to have my master's, and I was offered the summer scholarship because of all of that movement that I created myself. So I went, and I was in the middle of my program when COVID hit us all. Suddenly, I was an infectious disease physician with a profound knowledge of my country's health system, with public health experience and training, and the most complicated public health crisis of our times was happening at the same time. So what happened is that before graduating at Hopkins, I was hired as a consultant by the World Bank and started working with health systems preparedness and response to COVID in different countries. So I worked for South Korea, for Guinea-Bissau, for Cape Verde. And at some point I was hired to work in a project to build the testing system for my own country. And that was a moment for me. And I said, great, so now I'm going to be able to help my country on a different level to deal with this disease at the moment that we are suffering the most. By then, it was May 2020. We were having over 4,000 deaths a day, the worst pandemic moment in Brazil. And that number underrepresented what was really going on. So again, remember all those core values that took me all the way. We live in a very polarized moment in Brazil, politically polarized moment. But public health must be above that, right? And although I was very critical to a lot of different things, I decided to take the opportunity. So I quit again my jobs by then and accepted the challenge to lead COVID-19 response in Brazil. I worked like crazy. My life was absolutely, I don't even know how to translate that to you, honestly, because as a woman and as a physician and as someone that was not linked to political parties or was just a technical person, my life was absolutely on every single newspaper or website or TV channel that you can imagine. But I was there and I worked a lot. But I don't know if you know that. And if you don't know that, again, shame on you, you should. Although we had the most incredible system to deal with a pandemic by being so granular, by being in absolutely every city in Brazil, by having more than 300,000 community health workers, by having free point of care, by being based in primary health care, we were supposed to respond quite bravely to the pandemic, and we did not do that. So that was my idea, and that, and of course, adjusting to what we were going through, and incorporating the testing and all these strategies, mobility, and everything else that I had on my mind. Absolutely science-driven, as I told you, part of my values. I worked for long 10 days under public eye as never before. That was probably the second most important position in the country by then. 10 days later, my pro-science positions made me go through probably by then the most traumatic experience of my life. I was dismissed in the middle of that. And I wanted to understand exactly what was going on. And the problem is that my pro-science values were incongruent with the current administration values. Just for you to know, and that is really embarrassing to me, we are still 2 years later, and today is the 21st of January, 2022. We are still discussing in the administration level if we should incorporate hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin as public health measures against the disease in this country, which we all know are absolutely not efficient in dealing with the disease. So by then, that was the situation that took me out of the position. To make the long story short, because then after that, it's crazy, but to make the long story short, I was summoned to talk, let's say like this, to a parliamentary inquiry committee that was evaluating, I'm trying to choose the words, as you can see, evaluating the federal response to COVID-19 in the country. I was there for 8 hours, and that was the highest TV audience in the country by then. So suddenly everybody knew me, and everybody was an 8-hour student of epidemiology, lesson on COVID-19 and how we should respond in the country. What I want you to understand is that what seemed to be the most terrible moment of my life, I was so frustrated for not being able to help my own country with everything that I had on me, was actually the most incredible thing that happened professionally to me. I am now a top science communicator in my country. When I got to the position, I had 7,000 followers on Instagram. I do now have, I think 330 or 40,000, something like this. And I only talk about science. So science is now a topic in the country. People discuss vaccines and treatments and public health. And I understood that this is also a calling for me. It's not only about policy making, but it's now truly incorporating people into policy, public health policy decisions. We are in an electoral year. As I was telling Paul and Olivia, I still receive, since then, that deposition was June the 2nd last year. Since then, there is not one day that I do not receive a death threat. I do receive police protection, and but still, that was the most important moment and took me to a whole other level in my career, which is a place that I never, ever expected to be. And this is what I want you to understand. I never expected or worked for this kind of projection or, position or anything like this. I was only faithful to the core values that drove me since my first day as a professional, and why not as a person. But there are some stuff, and you can see that although in different levels, people's behavior when it comes to the intersection of politics and public health are not exactly that far apart. So those minor experiences were preparing myself to that major experience that I had, and those 10 days changed my life. So bottom line, I just want you to understand that everything that you are learning at this moment is crucial, but what you are learning from each other and what you learned before that in every single experience of your professional life is absolutely fundamental to what you're going to live, and more, how are you going to survive to the challenges that our profession will put us through. So I hope that this helps you somehow. I do have 5 minutes for questions if you want me to answer some. And then I do have a lot of different things to do in the day. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate the invitation. It's always good to be back at Hopkins, even if it is like this.
Thank you, Luana. It looks like we do have one question that came through the chat. They're asking, how did you handle these?
I think it's, I don't know if there is a recipe to talk about this, but at first so you need to understand that in Brazil right now, we do have a very oiled, very well-financed machine of fake news and people's destruction, So by going against that, and that machine is actually pro current government. So by just by speaking out what science is all about, I was put in this position of public enemy of the government. That being said, they tried to diminish me using my professional experience, and of course they failed because no one could do that. And because they failed, they tried to diminish me by being a woman. And this is something that also no one prepares you to. But at the same time, I think that most of the country understood what I did, and I am in a daily basis on every single TV channel that you can imagine in the country, explaining to people, translating to people science, the current science environment in terms of COVID and what we should be doing, or what we are failing, or what we are succeeding in doing. So what I learned by then is that the only thing that I could do is, and that was a weird decision, but I think it was the right decision. I decided to handle that publicly. The only way that I had to protect myself was to make people really know me as a professional. So know my competence, know what was driving me to do all that I was doing, what drove me to accept that challenge, what drove me out of there, and what drove me to keep doing what I do every single day. And that, I think, was the right decision. Nowadays, as I told you, I receive police protection. This has a very high personal cost and family cost as well. But again, I hold myself to my core values, and I know that I am being the best I can be, and I'm doing the best I can do, and this is what drives me every single day, even in the face of all those challenges. I see the question, I had no support at all because everybody was too scared to support me publicly. And that's why I had to expose myself in that matter. So I am in a daily basis on Instagram. I tell people stories, I explain things to them. And in Brazil, it's something crazy. In Brazil, I say that we have a historical event every 3 days because things are so crazy that we have to position ourselves to not, be seen as someone that is okay with everything that is going through. So this is what's happening so far. So we have an electoral year. I know that things are going to get uglier. I spent my New Year's Eve on a police station because of one of the threats that I received, a more complicated one. But again, I know every single day when I wake up that this is what I was supposed to be doing. And I am happy with myself. And there is nothing else out there that can shake that when you have this strong belief in what you are doing and what you should be doing. So I don't know if you are going to go through something like this, honestly. I hope that you are not in that level, but this is something that no matter what you do, you will find problems, you will find things that will shake your faith, as one can say. But again, it's just about knowing what to do and remembering what makes you choose every single day the path that you're still in. So this is the thing. I hope that you can cheer for me or help me or be someone that will multiply positive leaderships in your own micro universe. And this is what I think that we are supposed to do as public health professionals and public health leaders. And I hope to meet you all someday. Who knows? Oh, actually, Paul and Olivia, this is interesting. I was invited to speak at Harvard on April. And I will probably go down to Baltimore because I want to see a lot of different people that I miss. And if that happens, I would love to see you and maybe we can do something together by then. I hope so.
So I won't be in Baltimore in April, but hopefully we'll have the opportunity, I know, to meet in person some other time. I really want to thank you for your time, for your words, for the work that you do, for being true to your values. It truly is a lesson for us all. Thank you all for participating and listening in. And again, thank you so much, Luana.
Yeah, thank you guys. I wish you all the best and a lot of resilience to deal with everything that we still have to deal with in public health. I appreciate this time and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Luana.
Thank you. Bye.